The Beast in Me. It's a complex, character-driven story about obsession, grief, and the blurring line between predator and prey. Here is a detailed story breakdown. The Beast in Me. Detailed story explanation. The series primarily centers on two deeply wounded characters, Aggie Wiggs, Claire Danes, and her new neighbor Niall Jarvis, Matthew Rhys. 1. The characters and their trauma. Aggie Wiggs, a Pulitzer Prize-winning author whose life has been shattered by grief. She is isolated and suffering from crippling writer's block after the death of her young son in a car crash. Her home is falling apart, mirroring her internal state. She harbors a deep, consuming rage, particularly toward the young man, Teddy Pfennig, she holds responsible for her son's death, who was ultimately set free. Niall Jarvis, a wealthy, charismatic and powerful real estate scion who moves in next door with his second wife Nina, Brittany Snow. Niall is infamous because he was the prime suspect in the mysterious disappearance and presumed murder of his first wife Madison several years prior. He was never charged. 2. The relationship begins. Obsession and a new book. Aggie, fascinated and horrified by Niall's notoriety, becomes obsessed with him. Niall, in turn, is immediately drawn to Aggie, seeing a kindred spirit in her public anger and grief. Niall proposes a dangerous proposition. Aggie should abandon her failing current book and write a new one about him. Niall claims he wants to clear his name and tell his true story, while Aggie secretly hopes to expose him as a killer. The relationship becomes a tense game of cat and mouse. They engage in intimate conversations where Niall seems to acknowledge and even validate the dark beast within Aggie, her rage and darkest impulses, which she has been struggling to deny. 3. The line blurs and a new disappearance. As Aggie digs into Niall's past, she inadvertently shares details about her own trauma, specifically mentioning Teddy Pfennig. The next day, Teddy Pfennig disappears without a trace, much like Madison. This immediately confirms Aggie's worst fears. Niall is a killer, and her connection to him has put her in danger. Aggie begins secretly working with a disgraced FBI agent, Brian Abbott, who was the lead investigator on Madison's case and is convinced of Niall's guilt. 4. The twist and the trap. Aggie's investigation eventually leads her to definitive proof of Niall's guilt. She discovers that Madison was working as a whistleblower with Agent Abbott to expose Niall's family's corrupt business dealings, and Niall killed her to silence her. She also learns that Niall murdered Agent Abbott to stop him from exposing the truth. Crucially, Aggie discovers that Niall had kidnapped Teddy Pfennig and was holding him captive, using him as leverage in case Aggie got too close. 5. The climax and frame-up. Once Niall realizes Aggie knows the truth, he sets a terrifying plan in motion to frame her for murder. Niall kills Teddy Pfennig and deposits his body inside Aggie's house. He then calls the police, reporting suspicious activity, making it look like Aggie, consumed by vengeance over her son's death, had abducted, tortured, and killed Teddy. Aggie goes on the run, knowing the police will never believe her story, as Niall is a powerful, respected figure. 6. The confession and the end. Desperate to clear her name, Aggie has only one last hope: Nina Jarvis, Niall's pregnant second wife. Aggie sneaks into Nina's art gallery and confronts her, pleading with her to accept what she must already suspect: Niall is a murderer. That night, Nina confronts Niall at home, recording the conversation. Under pressure, Niall confesses to killing Madison and Teddy. He is arrested soon after. The wider Jarvis family begins to crumble. Niall's uncle, Rick Jarvis, agrees to testify against Niall in exchange for a lighter sentence, and he later arranges for Niall to be stabbed to death in prison to prevent further disgrace to the family name. Months later, Aggie has published her new best-selling book, The Beast in Me, a confessional work where she finally comes to terms with her own grief and the role she played in the tragedy. The series ends with Nina giving birth to her child. She is free from Niall but burdened with the knowledge of her husband's monstrous nature, leaving her future uncertain. In essence, The Beast in Me is the story of Aggie confronting her own grief and inner rage by chasing a real-life monster, Niall. In the process, she puts her own life at risk but ultimately finds the truth and a new narrative for her life.